All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get our meeting started, and we're going to call to order tonight the Thousand Oaks City Council as well as the Thousand Oaks Public Financing Authority. If you'd all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. And we begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. May we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Engler.
Present.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Councilmember McCoy.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Bill Dela Pena.
Present.
Mayor Adam.
And I'm here. And we do have a couple of things under the continuance part of the agenda. We're going to pull consent item 7G at the request of the applicant. And we are also going to juggle our agenda just a little bit, and we're going to move up the Community Funding Review Committee report so we can have Ann and her folks not have to wait all night. So with that, we're going to move on to our city manager, who has a few words to say.
Thank you so much, Mayor Adam. As is becoming all too common an occurrence in recent weeks, we have a member of our executive team whose final city council meeting it is this evening. So I just wanted to take a quick moment. We acknowledge Jay Spurgeon, our Public Works Director, at a previous meeting. And tonight is Barry McComb, our Cultural Affairs Director's final meeting. Barry, if you don't mind stepping down to the podium for just a quick second so we can... Had a chance to share some words about Barry at a TO Arts function last week, but it's important, I think, to give the council a quick opportunity and for me to share a couple of words tonight. There are few better hires, I think, in my career as I look back than the hire we made with Barry McComb. He came into this organization at a pivotal time with our theaters and cultural affairs department and truly transformed almost every aspect of what we're doing. He put us on a path to financial stability in a period of time that things were quite rocky. He helped to shore up our work with all of our resident arts companies. He worked diligently to improve our programming lineup. He led renovations of not only the lobby, but the entire interior of the theater that was just completed and behind the scenes in our green rooms and back rooms. He built and solidified relationships with agents across the spectrum. We're now a venue of choice to play. And in his last performance that he worked here at this venue was this past Saturday. We had dual sold-out performances, a 7 p.m. and a 10 p.m. show with a comedian, and just had a tremendously successful run. Just an example of the types of programming that we're now able to bring in and help keep the theater on a strong financial footing. But perhaps most notably, Barry led the effort to merge the Alliance for the Arts and our in-house arts nonprofit under the moniker of TO Arts. And TO Arts has quickly become, under Barry's leadership, the strongest arts nonprofit in Ventura County. And it set us on a path for long-term prosperity. He did it in a way as a statesman and bringing a lot of disparate parties together. And it will forever be a part of Barry's legacy here in this organization. So I myself, his executive colleagues, and I know the Cultural Affairs Department staff are going to miss him tremendously. I said last week, there's not many of these retirement conversations that I go in and talk to the team with Barry in which tears erupt, and this was one of those cases. And I see many members of your team up in the audience tonight. So it's really a tribute to the kind of leader and the kind of person you are, Barry. Incredibly proud to have worked with you and call you a friend, and look forward to seeing you as a familiar face here in the venue for years to come. I know Barry may offer a couple of words, but certainly anybody on the council that would like to share anything.
Thank you, Drew. Mayor Pro Tem, you've been known to be an ardent supporter of the arts. Would you care to add to that?
Most certainly. Thank you, Mayor Adam. Barry, as Drew already mentioned, you have really transformed the arts community here in the city of Thousand Oaks, and you have done so pretty much single-handedly. Yes, you are surrounded by very strong staff, but the direction came from you. And what you have done to transform the culture here in Thousand Oaks will be forever etched into the history of Thousand Oaks. You're leaving behind quite the legacy. And for that, you are to be commended. We will try to continue what you have started, and I will work and do my darndest to make you proud. And with, of course, the TO Arts, and with the help of Nikki as well, I hope to continue that legacy, and I really look forward to seeing you return to what will hopefully be a new and improved Civic Arts Plaza. So good luck, Barry. Thank you.
Turn the mic on. Councilmember Engler.
Thank you, Mayor Adam. Barry, what the other colleagues here have said is spot on, but I just want to highlight what happened a little over a year ago when you had concerts scheduled, the fire came through, we had our borderline incident. You reshuffled everything to concentrate on helping the city to heal. And with the benefit concerts that you helped put through, that was, I think, a real feather in your cap, and I appreciate the extra effort that you and your team did for that. So thank you.
Councilmember McCoy.
Back in 2015, when I just came on the council and I was getting a tour of each of the facilities, and you took me on a tour, Barry, I was so grateful because I learned so much, and you took time to instruct me, and I was really grateful for that. But going through the years, coming to this point, and as Councilmember Engler pointed out, what you did after the borderline incident and also with the fires, I was thinking about the borderline, that was the epicenter of just pain and heartache. But the Kavli became the epicenter of hope and comfort. And you did that. And your staff did that. And I'm grateful. And we're going to miss you. And so thank you for all you've done. And I wish you a wonderful retirement. God bless you.
Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, let me just add, excuse me, that Joanna and I have been season ticket holders for about 20 years, and I have seen the improvement in the quality of the offerings and certainly the major facelift that you supervised just recently. It's just a beautiful theater, and I think it's rising to its potential because of your good work. And I'm kind of a late person on the scene here in the council, but I'd just like to add my words of congratulation and wish the very best for you. Thank you for all you've done for the theater and for the city of Thousand Oaks.
Thank you all. And Barry, it's just been great to work with you. Not only do you love the arts, but you're a good businessman. And you've really, the theaters have never been in better shape than they are now. And that's the legacy that you're leaving. You put together the whole merger between the Alliance and the Foundation, which was a monumental effort, and it left the theaters in fantastic shape. And people don't know the hours Barry has put in here. It's not just during the day. He's here for most of the performances, too. Wandering around, making sure everything's in order, saying hello to people. I mean, he's always a presence here at the theaters, and we really appreciate that. And Barry, tonight we're going to be voting on our campus master plan, which will definitely help the theaters, and you can rest assured that we want to make sure these theaters stay as great as you've made them. So thank you, Barry. Would you like to say a few words? You probably would.
Yeah, I will make my comments brief because I know you have a long agenda tonight. It was a little over 8 years ago that I first came in front of you, back in February of 2012. And coming into Thousand Oaks, I had heard from a lot of my friends that worked for other cities of what a unique, special city and community Thousand Oaks was. And I have to say, over the 8 years I've been here, my expectations coming in have far been exceeded. It's very rare to find a city with council members who understand and support the value that the arts can bring to a community. I think several of you really touch base on, one of the ways that the arts can help a community that we never really think about on a day-to-day basis, and that is to help a community heal from the pain of things that take place. You talked a lot about legacy. We've accomplished a lot over the last 8 years. I think with the formation of the new Arts and Culture Roundtable, which you're voting on tonight to make your appointments to, with the CAP Master Plan, with the Downtown Core Plan, and for the first time having a general plan with a cultural component, it just shows how much, as a council, you do value the arts. But when it comes to legacies, my true legacy, I think, is the staff that I've built and that am leaving behind, which is the hardest part of leaving. And none of the things that I get credit for making happen, none of them would be possible if it wasn't for all the talented people who are up here behind me. So I guess I'll just end by saying it's really been my pleasure to serve you as the City Council, and even more so to serve the citizens of Thousand Oaks. And I do look forward to coming back as a patron in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. Well, thank you, Barry. And our city is staff is in the baby boomer realm, so we are losing some key members, but we have some great people on the replacement end as well. So thank you, Barry. All right, let us now go to public comments. If you'd call those, please.
This is the time and place for public comments. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. Speakers for the public hearing item shall be called and heard during the public hearing. All remarks should be addressed to the council as a whole, and all documents for City Council and the official record should be presented to the city clerk prior to speaking. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Under state law, public comment matters may not be considered by the council unless listed on the agenda, but may be referred to the city manager for administrative follow-up. 3 individuals have presented cards, and pursuant to council standards, speakers are allowed 3 minutes. The yellow light displays when you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. First up is Billy Martin, followed by Tish Greenwood.
My name is Billy Martin, and I'm a Thousand Oaks lover. So we fasten 1,000 of these to the copper curtain. Simple. In my business, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Simple, but not easy. Make no mistake, this is public art, generally hallmarked by 3 factors: a world-class artist, which Joe Sapiri is, millions of dollars, and controversy. He and I launched Westlake Village together in 1981, creating a bug that is their logo, city seal, and signage, and still looks as fresh today as it did then. Here he is doing this work for the city right now. He is not charging near what he should get. The copper curtain has been the center of controversy for over 20 years. Here is our solution at $250,000. What happens when you don't communicate is the response I got to my proposal a few weeks ago, saying up front, we can't approve of your fundraising program. That has nothing to do with this. It was an add-on. Apparently, ad hoc committee meetings have met several times without consultation with me or Joe. They got it all wrong. There is no mention in the rejection of the art whatsoever. It goes on to ridicule my fundraising skills, not realizing I handled the largest and most successful fundraising event this city has ever known, the Tim Conway Celebrity Golf Benefit. Most of you were teenagers. By the way, it also says that Adopt an Oak is doing fine. It actually has raised only $1,200 in the last 3 years. The rejection also says what the city really wants is an architectural design element. That is the very foundation of this proposal. Exactly what Andy Fox was looking for in his original RFP 20 years ago next month. I recall you talked to me about my Golden Oak Memorial idea with no thank you or acknowledgement at the dedication ceremony. I spent many hours on Ed Lawrence's last calendar for which I was not paid, not thanked or acknowledged. Put the shoe on the other feet, people. With a mere $60K in my campaign, I might easily have been sitting up there. This is absolutely unfair to me, which I'm used to. But what about Joe Sabiri?
Thank you, Mr. Martin. You need to finish up, please.
Oh, I didn't see the thing. As far as the general public, what generally does not occur with public art is near 100% approval from the residents of the city. Thank you. I don't plan to give up on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Tish Greenwood, followed by Michael Christie. Evening.
Hello, I'm Tish Greenwood. I live in Santa Monica, but I work in Thousand Oaks. I am the executive director of the California Museum of Art, Thousand Oaks, Samato. And it's a pleasure to be here today with you, council members and city staff, and to be here especially for you, Barry, on the last day. Barry, on behalf of us, I know that the events helped us process those tragedies. I've also been in contact with Barry because of the campus master plan, and on behalf of the museum, we are very enthusiastic that the city continues to embrace the arts, visual arts, performing arts, and as we talked about just recently, how it does bring the community together, and we are pleased to see how this will develop over the years. For us, we are at the Oaks Mall now, and we have, for 14 months, we've received 40,000 visitors, which is making us one of the leading museums in the region, and we're only open 3 days a week. So you think about that when you're looking at your campus master plan, and indeed, the community will come for the art, local and from afar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Greenwood. Michael Christie. Evening.
Good evening, Mayor Adam, council members. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Michael Christie. I'm the music director of the New West Symphony. This is my artistic home at Thousand Oaks. However, I am an actual resident of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I started my tenure as music director of the New West Symphony over the past year, and during this time have come to know a community that is thriving in so many ways and rigorously contemplating its role in the lives of its citizens. It is clear to me that part of that strategy rests with organizations such as the New West Symphony, so we are deliberately presenting a wide array of impactful programming and making notable changes in how we present our offerings. This weekend, a weekend later in April, and for several events in between, New West Symphony seeks to focus our community's attention on the impact of anti-Semitism over nearly 200 years. It is an enormous topic, and we have chosen to focus on musicians' legacies in the midst of and through anti-Semitism in its various forms. We begin our weekend of performances this Saturday here in our beautiful Kavli Theater, welcoming over 160 performers of the New West Symphony, Los Robles Children's Choir, CLU Choir and Women's Chorale, Arete Vocal Ensemble, and the Kingsman Shakespeare Company to perform works that directly address humanity's creative power under unbelievably devastating circumstances. Later in April, we will be the Ventura County partner in a stunning concert presentation of The Violins of Hope with the New West Symphony, a project bringing recovered and restored instruments to educate and memorialize the lives of prisoners in concentration camps through concerts, exhibitions, and other projects. We will be partnering with the Reagan Library and several synagogues to offer supplemental opportunities to explore this topic in depth. As soon as we began discussing this programming with New West Symphony patrons over the past year, the enormous reach of the topic became immediately apparent. In our own community, we not only have survivors of these camps, but several generations of passionate family and community members committed to preserving and celebrating the day-to-day lives and exceptional legacies of their loved ones and others lost and impacted. The New West Symphony and our partners are proud to spearhead this topic and look forward to contributing to the quality of life here in Thousand Oaks and its neighboring communities with programming like this and other plans we have going forward. I'd also like to thank the city's generous support of New West Symphony in particular for our Symphonic Adventures concerts, which will be held on March 18th for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students. The students have been preparing for these concerts all school year with the aid of these Carnegie Hall workbooks we provide free of charge to more than 2,500 Conejo area school children. If you haven't been to one of these before, imagine our venue full to the roof with 1,700 screaming kids cheering like it's a rock concert, but it's for classical music. I'm thrilled to be part of a member of this community and thrilled for the impact the arts have here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christie.
Mayor. Mr. Mayor? Over here.
Oh, pardon me. Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank
I
you.
thought I heard a voice somewhere.
Maestro Christie, thank you so much for highlighting the program. My family and I will be looking forward to this weekend's program at the Copley Theater. I can't wait. And I absolutely love that you are mixing the arts, music, with bringing awareness to anti-Semitism, not only in our community, but in the entire region. It is so very important for today's generation to see what happened in the past, because if we cannot learn from the past, we will repeat those mistakes. So thank you for transforming the season already for the New West Symphony, and we are very, very lucky to have you join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Mr. Christie. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to move on to a committee report, and this is for our Community Funding Review Committee, and we have Ann LaFianza here to give us that
Mayor,
report.
do you want to do consent or move on to the report?
Oh, yeah, we might do that too. Let's do that first. Yeah, go ahead. The mayor forgot something. Yes. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Councilmember McCoy.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Beautifully put.
With the removal of
Oh, yes. And we pulled, what was it? 7G.
7G.
Yeah. All right. Can we vote on that, please?
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Now we go to our Community Funding Review Committee with Ann LaFianza as the chair, who so gallantly serves on this important committee.
Hello, good evening, Mayor Adam and council members. My name is Ann LaFianza, and I'm the chair of the Community Funding Review Committee. And before I start my report, I just have to say how excited I am to have a fellow Minnesotan here. It is my pleasure to be here this evening to present the Community Funding Review Committee's recommendation for the city's fiscal year 2019-2020 Community Enhancement Grants, or CEG grants. The city's CEG grant program funding is included in the adopted fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. The grant is funded by interest income earned in the solid waste fund budget. This year, $40,000 of funding was made available to support environmental projects for local, nonprofit, community, and school groups. Qualifying programs must provide a benefit for the community they serve and a wide cross-section of Thousand Oaks residents. The application period was open from October 23rd to December 2nd, and the application form was available on the city's website. Email notifications were sent to applicants from the previous grant cycle. A press release was issued. An email regarding the grant program was sent to CVUSD. An article was published in the Sustainability Division e-newsletter, which was distributed to over 10,000 subscribers. And the city utilized social media to notify the community of the grant opportunity. The city received 8 qualified applications with grant requests totaling $36,650. CFRC members reviewed and evaluated the applications independently and objectively using predetermined scoring criteria. Application scores were provided to city staff for tabulation, and the individual scores were combined and award recommendations made based on a funding distribution rubric. These were unanimously confirmed by the committee at the January 9th CFRC meeting to be brought to council this evening. The CFRC is recommending grant funding for 8 organizations for a total of $30,400. These are the 8 organizations being recommended for funding. The represented projects meet the criteria for benefiting the community and a wide cross-section of residents. These include water conserving landscaping, trail work days, Monarch Butterfly Waste Station, and food waste reduction. The Community Funding Review Committee recommends that City Council award the fiscal year 2019-2020 CEG grants as presented with a total award of $30,400. And this concludes my presentation this evening, and I am available for questions along with Assistant to the City Manager Melissa Hurtado and Assistant Analyst Vanessa Pellegrino.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
LaFianza. Have any questions for our speaker? I can tell you this is a very important committee because it's now the umbrella committee for all our grant applications.
Mm-hmm.
So you must be doing a lot of work, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember McCoy.
And I just want to know what's Friends of Revo? I'm familiar with it. It was one of the recipients. I know all the
Friends
others.
of
It looked like Revo?
Yeah, it's like
REVO?
Right.
Councilmember McCoy, if I can intervene, that was actually on the report it was a previous year's grant
okay.
recipient.
I thought that said 1920. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, then you don't know who that is, and that's okay. Thank you, Ann, for all you do.
Sure, thank you.
All right, very good. If there's no further discussion, looking for a motion. Mayor Pro Tem.
Move approval of the recommendation.
Thank you. May we vote, please?
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again,
Have a
Ann.
good evening.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. We have a public hearing next. So if Ms. Rodriguez, if you would open the public hearing, please.
Hearing advertised as required by law is open to consider agenda item 8A regarding energy services for LED lighting retrofits. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the City Council regarding this public hearing. And at this time, we do not have any public speakers.
All right. Thank you. And Mr. Kenneth Wang is going to take us through this hearing. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Council.
There we go.
I'm here to present staff's recommendation for energy services for LED lighting retrofits at the Grant Brimhall Library. I'm joined on the dais by Cliff Finley, Director of Public Works, and Liz Perez, Facilities Manager. Lighting at Grant Brimhall Library is currently provided by fluorescent, metal halide, and incandescent fixtures. Retrofitting the lighting to more efficient LEDs will reduce lighting energy usage by about 60%, save approximately $34,000 per year in electricity costs, and improve the quality of light in the building. Southern California Edison currently offers an incentive program for reducing energy demand in this area called Local Capacity Requirements. Through this program, we estimate the city could receive about $50,000 towards this project. Staff issued a request for proposals for energy services for LED lighting retrofits on December 19th, 2019. Wesco Services, LLC was found to be the most qualified to meet the city's needs. Council is asked to approve a general services agreement with Wesco Services, LLC to provide energy services for LED lighting retrofits at the Grant Brimhall Library, which will be conducted in 2 phases. The first phase will be for lighting designs at a cost of $2,773. Upon the city's selection of a design option, the contractor will procure materials and perform installation under Phase 2. This process is a little different to our usual one in that we are using a California Government Code section designed to assist public agencies in expediting and financing energy conservation measures. This code eliminates the 2-step design and construction phases of an energy project, allowing us to accelerate the timeline in order to meet the deadline for SCE's incentive program. Staff is requesting Council's approval of the agreement and authorization of expenditure for design and installation phases. Thank you. We are here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. Councilmember Engler.
Thank you, Mayor. It's Mr. Wang on the this $50,000 is coming back from Southern California Edison. Is that going to be paid up front, or is that over a period of years? How does that come back to us?
The $50,000 estimated incentive is actually going to be awarded directly to the contractor rather than to the city. And so the installation cost that the contractor will propose will have already been reduced by that expected incentive amount. And so the contractor will receive that incentive after the proposal's already been made and the installation has been completed.
So if my math is right, there's a 3-year turnaround on our outlay of funds on this?
It's about a 3.5-year payback period.
Okay. And then was this particular contractor the low bid contractor, or was it, so do we have multiple bids, or how do we go about that?
We received 3 proposals, and among the 3 proposals, Wesco Services LLC was the only proposer that actually has experience with this particular SCE incentive program. That, combined with their experience in LED lighting and retrofits in general, led us to select Wesco Services. The other 2 did not have experience in this actual program. And actually, as far as the bid, Wesco and another proposer had amounts that were very, very close. The third had a little bit lower bid, but they really did not have any experience with this incentive program.
Because the Wesco had the experience with Southern California Edison, they were given the contract then?
Yes, they have experience in this specific Southern California Edison incentive program.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Wang. It's just one more example of Thousand Oaks being environmentally forward-thinking in a green city, per usual, and makes these incandescent bulbs seem pretty primitive, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and as Councilmember Engler says, the program pays for itself in, 3.5 years? So that's great. 60% energy reduction. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, may I ask for a motion, please? Oh, we have to close the public hearing first. Yes, which I'm going to do. Closed. Now I would like a motion. And Mayor Pro Tem, how about you?
Move approval of recommendations 1, 2, and 3.
All right, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. If we vote, please.
The motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you. And next up, we have a department report. Jamie Boscarino, our finance director, is going to be giving that to us, and it's about refunding some bonds. I'll let Jamie explain.
Thank you, Mayor Adam, council members. Tonight, we are here to present the refunding of the 2010 library lease revenue bonds to the Thousand Oak Public Financing Authority for approval. The 2010 Public Financing Authority financed the libraries, the senior adult facility, the teen center, and Conejo Creek Park North. Because the bonds are eligible to be redeemed on June 1st, the City Council authorized staff to evaluate the feasibility of refunding the bonds. And the Finance Audit Committee was provided an update on the refunding status in January. The financing team that we have it consists of several consultants. With me to my left on the dais is Chris Lynch from Jones Hall. He's our bond counsel. We also have here tonight Vanessa Legbant, the city's disclosure counsel from Stradling, Yelka, Carlson, and Routh, as well as Jim Fabian, the city's municipal advisor from Philbin Earl and Associates. And they're both here as well tonight in the audience if you have any questions. Not here tonight is our underwriter, Sarah Brown, who's with Stiefel, Nicholas and Company. Issuing debt is a very time-consuming and complicated process to undertake. Our outside financing team has helped us successfully navigate us through this process over the last several months, and they have really been instrumental in ensuring this is a smooth process. The city staff that have been on our financing team, besides myself, and also include Patrick Keher, our assistant city attorney, Carrie Matson, our deputy finance director, Tracy Friedel, our deputy city attorney, and Jane Adelman, our debt and investment analyst. And I want to personally thank each and every one of these city staff members and the entire team for all of their effort and time throughout this lengthy process, because it really has been a team effort. So just a little bit of background on the Public Financing Authority. It was created in 1988 through a joint powers agreement between the city and the Thousand Oaks Redevelopment Agency. Its purpose is to finance city capital improvements, typically through lease and lease-back structures. The City Council also acts as the authority's board of directors, and the authority meets as needed, which is why we are here tonight. To give you just a brief background on the library, the site of the current grant, our Brimhole Library, was selected all the way back in 1978. The library actually sits on land that is owned by CRPD. The city and CRPD entered into a 50-year land lease agreement to lease the land, which also included two 24-year options to extend. That initial 50-year lease term is up in 2028. At which point the city and CRPD will be required to renew the lease for another 24 years, as the library bonds will not mature until 2031. So just a prior debt summary. The main library was constructed back in 1981. In 1988, the 1981 debt was refunded, with additional funds being borrowed to make capital improvements to the main library, to purchase and renovate the Newbury Park Library, and to construct the Adult Center, the Teen Center, and Conejo Creek Park North. After the Northridge earthquake, the 1994 bond was issued to refund the 1988 bond and to borrow additional funds to repair earthquake damage that was at the main library. In 2002, the 1994 bond was refunded, and additional funds were borrowed to construct the children's expansion at the main library and complete some improvements at the Newbury Park Library. And then most recently in 2010, the 2002 bonds were refunded. However, no additional funding was taken out. This was solely just to refinance for interest savings. The proposed debt will refund the existing 2010 bonds. The bonds will be lease revenue bonds, with the debt service being paid from lease payments made by the city to the authority through the lease-back structure. The final maturity will be shortened by 1 year, so currently it matures in 2032. We're going to be shortening the maturity by a year to 2031, so that the bonds will be repaid prior to the final dissolution of the former redevelopment agency, which will occur in 2032. The bonds will be non-callable, and they will mature after the current expiration date of the 1978 land lease with CRPD, like I mentioned. Therefore, the city will need to exercise its option to renew the lease for another 24 years. The bonds will be a fixed rate with level debt service, as most bonds are issued by the city. The bonds will be issued at a premium based on the recommendation of the city's municipal advisor to attract the most buyers in this low interest rate environment. Since the time the staff report was submitted to council, Standard & Poor's has issued its AA+ rating for the 2020 bonds. This is the same rating issued to the 2010 bonds and the highest rating this type of bond issuance can achieve. This means the implied rating for the city's general creditworthiness is AAA. S&P referenced the city's strong management, very strong budgetary performance, and very strong budgetary flexibility, and is a testament to the financial strength and management of the city. The city is an infrequent issuer, and the current debt is a small issue with a short term, and thus the decision was made to sell the bonds on a negotiated basis to Stifel. In addition, the market has experienced certain volatility as of late, especially this week. And for these reasons, the city selected to sell the bonds on a negotiated basis. Stifel has played an integral part of the refunding to ensure the bonds are structured to attract the most buyers and therefore lower the interest rate. Based on the market rates a couple of weeks ago, the 2020 bonds were estimated to produce a 16% net present value savings, which equates to approximately a $200,000 annual savings to the city's general fund. The all-in true interest cost was approximately 1.42%. The bonds are scheduled to price on March 10th, so the ultimate savings based on today could potentially be greater than that last estimate. Now onto the debt policy. Although the city has had a debt policy for years, the authority has never independently approved of the debt policy. The city's debt policy is reviewed every 2 years as part of the budget process, and any material changes to the policy are brought to City Council separately so that changes can be discussed. The policy has been updated to expand the scope of information that must be disclosed and to include an inventory of financial obligations. These changes were made due to Securities and Exchange Commission requirements. As part of the refunding, both the Authority Board and the City Council must adopt the revised policy at this time. Another recommendation before you tonight is in regards to the 2019 land lease. Not only does the city lease land from CRPD for the library, which you can see shaded in purple or blue on the maps, but also in a separate lease, the city leases adjacent land from CRPD for the Adult Community Center and the Teen Center. The land used for the library's children's expansion was originally included in the legal description of the lease between the city and CRPD for the adult and the teen centers. And then back in 2019, the 1988 land lease was revised. However, the legal description was not updated to exclude the portion of land used for the library children's expansion. In order to complete the bond refunding and sell the 2020 bonds, the legal description of the 2019 lease must be revised so that the library is not encumbered by the 2019 lease, and that is one of the recommendations that is before you tonight. And then now I'm going to turn it over to Chris Lynch.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I think it's on. Okay. As Jamie described, this financing is structured as a lease revenue bond, which means we need another entity other than the city to participate, in this case, the Thousand Oaks Public Financing Authority. So tonight, there'll be two resolutions, one of the City Council and one of the Thousand Oaks Public Financing Authority, that will approve issuance of the bonds, approve the various financing documents, and authorize staff to take necessary actions with respect to the issuance of the bonds. The resolution approves the various financing documents, which I'll describe briefly and slightly out of order as they're shown on the slide. The site and facilities lease is the lease that the city uses to lease the main library to the Thousand Oaks Public Financing Authority. The purpose of that lease is to create a leasehold interest in the financing authority so it can lease it back to the city. The city, under the third amended and restated lease agreement, will pay lease payments that are equal to debt service on the bonds. Under the assignment agreement, the Public Financing Authority will assign its rights under the lease agreement to the bond trustee, U.S. Bank, and those rights include, most importantly, the right to receive lease payments. Under the indenture, the Public Financing Authority will issue lease revenue bonds payable from the city's lease payments, And the indenture describes not only the terms for the bonds, maturity rates, maturity dates, and principal amounts along with interest rates, but it also describes the remedies and rights of bond owners. A portion of the bond proceeds will be used to refinance the 2010 lease revenue bonds, as Jamie described, and those proceeds will be held by U.S. Bank as trustee for the 2010 bonds under the escrow deposit and trust agreement. U.S. Bank will use the proceeds to prepay the 2010 lease revenue bonds on June 1, 2020. The bonds will be sold to Stifel Nicholas as bond underwriter pursuant to the bond purchase agreement. The bond purchase agreement is a contract where the underwriter agrees to buy the bonds so long as the city meets certain conditions, primarily consisting of execution of the various financing documents and issuance of opinions from various attorneys as part of the transaction. Now, the bonds will be sold and marketed to investors pursuant to a preliminary official statement. The preliminary official statement under federal securities laws includes all financial information and operating data that would be relevant to the bond owners. In this case, the POS describes the city's general fund, which is a source of repayment of the lease payments. Under federal securities laws, the preliminary official statement must include all material information, any information a reasonable investor would take into account in making the decision to buy or sell the bonds. In 1994, after Orange County declared bankruptcy, the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is the chief regulatory agency over federal securities laws, issued a report that described the duties of elected officials when approving a preliminary official statement like you're doing tonight. The Securities and Exchange Commission said that you don't have to read the preliminary official statement word for word, but if you know information that would impact the ability of the city to pay debt service on the bonds, then you want to make sure that it's been disclosed. That could be done by looking at the preliminary official statement. It could be done by talking to the city attorney or the finance director. It could be done by talking to bond counsel or disclosure counsel. But the key thing is, under the circumstances, the SEC expects you to take reasonable steps to make sure that information that you know of about the city's ability to pay debt service is disclosed in the preliminary official statement. The staff report highlights the key sections of the preliminary official statement. The key ones are, there's a section called the security for the bonds, which describes the city's lease payment obligation. There's an Appendix A that describes the city's finances, specifically the general fund. And there's a section called risk factors. The final document that the City Council will approve tonight is a continuing disclosure certificate. Under the continuing disclosure certificate, the city will agree on an annual basis to provide information to investors. The city will disclose its audit. It will include updates of the financial information and operating data that were in the preliminary official statement, and it will provide notice of certain events such as rating changes, bond defaults, changes in the real property that is leased under the lease agreement, if that ever occurs, when those events occur. I'll hand it back to Jamie.
So next steps for tonight, we have the board approval and council approval. We will be pricing the bonds on March 10th. The bond will close on April 1st, and the 2010 bonds will be redeemed on June 1st. And then tonight's actions you see for City Council are to approve the issuance of the bonds and the accompanying documents, adopt the revised debt policy, and approve the amendment to revise the legal description to the 2019 land lease agreement for the senior adult facility and teen center. And then the authorities board will be to approve the issuance of the bonds and the accompanying documents and adopt a debt policy. And in closing, I would just like to say that the city is a very low debt city. Aside from this issuance, the only other outstanding direct city debt is the wastewater loan for the State Water Resources Control Board, and that will actually be paid off in 2022. So in less than 2 years, that loan will be paid off, and it will just be the library bonds that will be outstanding, which will then mature in 2031. As evidenced with the S&P rating that we received, the city is in a very strong financial position. And staff and our consultants are available if you have any questions.
And thank you, Ms. Boscarino and Mr. Lynch. Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, Jamie, based on what's happening in the stock market right now, Wouldn't this have a tendency to lower the interest rate on bonds at this time? I mean, that money must be going somewhere.
Yeah, so right now is a really great time for us to be in the bond market and issuing debt.
Congratulations on your
We timed it well.
I'm sure you knew what was going to happen last 2 days. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I will concur with Ms. Pasquarino. The 10-year Treasury closed today at 1.3%, 5-year low. The timing of this is incredibly fortuitous, and with our AA plus rating, I'm sure we'll get probably the lowest possible rate we out there. I would like to just add, as I said, it's a very timely, fortuitous move. It's going to save the city $200,000 a year, $2 million by the life of the bond. But whenever you do a bond issue, Standard & Poor's has to issue a report about the fiscal strength of the city, and we've all said to ourselves we're all fiscal conservatives. I would urge you to read this S&P report about the city of Thousand Oaks. I was completely blown away, if I could use that term. Some of the points S&P made about us in there, and they are an extremely well-respected rating agency. The city's prudent funding practices, robust balance sheet, consistent operating surpluses, strong financial management, strong city management, good financial policies. These are all testimony to Ms. Pasquarino and her department, and Mr. Powers and the E-team. Consistent operating surpluses, strong reserves, low debt load, pension stabilized, strong debt position. We only less than 1% of our expenditures go on debt, and the report said that 85% of the debt will be paid off in the next 10 years. So, and with AA plus rating, we would have had a AAA, but they're revenue bonds, so they bring us down a half a step. But we have the same rating as the U.S. Treasuries. AA plus. I mean, that's pretty much unheard of in the municipal bond market. Anyway, suffice it to say, we are in very strong financial position, and this bond issue just clarified that for me, and I hope the rest of my council members. Councilmember Enkler.
Thank you, Mayor. I spent most of yesterday and today reading that entire document.
Wow.
And without falling asleep. I found it very interesting and very riveting. The bottom line, though, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, we are lowering our rate that we're going to be paying out, saving $200,000 per year for the next 10 years or so, about $2 million, and we're reducing our time that we need to carry those bonds, right?
Correct.
So I'm not sure there's any problem with that that I can see. In terms of the disclosures that we have to do, I noticed that we listed everything from earthquakes to fire to all sorts of things. I tried hard to find other things that perhaps would be something we would need to tell investors, and I found it very hard to do so. We seem to be a very well-run city and quite a bit of cash on hand. Our debt is within limits. Can you explain a little bit about our PERS exposure and perhaps how that figures into our liabilities as far as an investor might consider it?
Right. So our current unfunded liability with PERS is about 68 million. But what council, the actions they took in 2018 was one, to set aside $22.5 million towards that unfunded liability in a trust fund that we could invest earning more than our city portfolio. So as of our last statements, we were already over $24 million in that trust fund. So we've already earned $1.5 million on that investment. And that will be used at some point in the future towards our city unfunded liability. So we're about 75% funded status. And then we have been, for the past 5 years, making one-time ad hoc additional payments on top of our required payment to CalPERS to the tune of about $1.5 million a year, using our salaries and benefits savings that we've had each year. So we are actively paying more than we are even required to. And then the third step, which City Council also took action in 2018, was to establish the Fresh Start program with CalPERS. So previously it was sort of like a 30-year mortgage. We reduced that into a 15-year mortgage. So we're 2 years into that. So all things considered, if CalPERS meets its estimates, we will be completely paid off within 13 years, our unfunded liability with CalPERS.
So that particular liability is going to be going away about the same time as this bond is paid off.
Right.
Nicely done.
And there's not a lot of cities out there that can say that. Yeah.
And if I may add, the refinancing of our pension obligation that you mentioned from 30 to 15 years will save the taxpayer $15 million.
30 million.
Oh, 30 million. Yeah. Yikes. How could I get that wrong? 30 million. And remember that. $30 million over the next 15 years. So that's pretty incredible. Mr. Powers, wanted to chime in?
If there's no more council comment before you take action tonight, I just wanted to take a quick moment of thanks for the team that put many hours into this. When Jamie brought this forward for discussion last fall, and we began this process, it's really a tribute to her sort of financial leadership and foresight that we started down this path. This is not an easy exercise to go through for anyone that's involved, but we really focused on it with the finance team and all of our city attorneys and other support teams, and very appreciative of Jamie's leadership. Just another indicator of our sort of strong financial management practices, and wanted to share a note of thanks to her.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I think we have come to a motion. If there's no further questions.
After all that,
Councilmember Jones?
After all that wonderful news, I feel very safe in moving approval of item 9A.
All right, very good. And if we could bring that to a vote, please.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Good report, good job. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to a department report now on our campus master plan, project update and recommendations. And our very own Gary Rogers, Deputy City Manager, will lead that report off, and we have folks from AECOM as well here. Take a moment just to set up here. It's all yours.
Good evening, Mayor Adam, members of the City Council. Before you tonight are a project update regarding the Civic Arts Plaza Campus Master Plan and recommendations to move the project forward. Completion of the Campus Master Plan is one of the City Council's top 10 priorities in fiscal year 1920. So we're really excited to share the current status of the project. We are going to review the Campus Master Plan design, shared feedback received at the community outreach events, discuss financing options, focusing on public-private partnerships, and present recommended next steps. The journey regarding the master plan started many years ago and has involved the City Council, the Campus Master Plan Ad Hoc Committee, the community, staff, and in the past 13 months, assistance from the AECOM team. Elements of the Downtown Core Master Plan are incorporated into the site design prepared by AECOM under the guidance of the City Council Ad Hoc Committee. There was significant community input and guidance on the 4 primary actions designed to help revitalize the downtown area, which included redesigning the Civic Arts Plaza to be more active and connected, to expand arts, cultural, and entertainment programming, to create a retail and entertainment destination, and to improve walkability in the pedestrian environment. I'd like to introduce Bob Levy and his team from AECOM, who are going to share with you the Civic Arts Plaza Campus Master Plan design and site plan.
Thanks, Gary. Mayor Adam, City Council, we're really excited to be here tonight to present to you an update on really what you asked us to move forward with back in November of last year. A few things on our agenda this evening. First, I'll introduce our team once again. Bob Levy is my name, and I'm the managing principal with AECOM. To my left is Mark McVeigh, our design lead on architecture. Mark Delouvrier, also here, landscape architect. And in the audience, John Deering, who you'll hear from later on tonight about P3 opportunities. Okay? I'll recap our November 5th City Council meeting, the things that came out of that, things you asked us to continue to work on. We'll share our process to date. It's been about a year since we've been working with you so far, and we've made tremendous accomplishments so far. We have site plan updates since the last City Council meeting as well. Gary will touch on public outreach and share more about what the city has heard from the city. And then we have some options to review in terms of financing and private investment, and then we'll touch on conclusions and next steps. So, recap from the last City Council presentation that we were at in November. We had presented the recommended design of the Main Street concept. That was November 5th of 2019. Since then, we've completed a comprehensive report and conceptual plans for site grading, roadway orientation architecture, landscape, and interior campus layout. We've also worked closely with the City Council Ad Hoc Committee to ensure that the goals established by the City Council are being accomplished on our continued development of the design. Process to date, as I mentioned, we started around this time last year, worked through February, April, and May, had our first ad hoc meeting in May, then really moved into conceptual design in August with the ad hoc committee at that point, and presented that to City Council in November. Since then, as I mentioned, we've really come a long way in defining the smaller items you see on the bottom right: public engagement, roadway orientation, site plan, grading plan, architecture plans, and interior layout. So a much more refined design overall. I'll touch briefly on the site plan updates. There's been a lot of refinement, but there's a few things that have adjusted just slightly I want to call your attention to. The diagram on the left is the previous plan presented November 5th. The diagram on the right is the current plan that we have arrived to today. We have slightly realigned the new Main Street that's being added to this campus. It used to have a bit more of a curve to it, and now it's a little more straightened out. It's done for a couple of reasons, really improving traffic flow and providing more spacious kind of opportunities for buildings to be placed on these sites as well. As I mentioned, we adjusted the building square footage to accommodate building programs, so giving the city as much flexibility and maximizing building size footprints so that when it goes to the next level of development, your development partner has more options to choose from. The third item is we increased road width to accommodate fire truck access. Fourth item is the terraced town. We've terraced the town square, which is in the upper right corner of the site plan. We've now depressed the town square slightly so it's below the level of Thousand Oaks Boulevard. It gives it a little more buffering from the sound of traffic and other activity along that major roadway. We've also slightly increased the amphitheater size by about 25 to 30%, allowing for more occupants to occupy that space. We've also adjusted the pedestrian circulation at the mid-crossing, which is on Dallas Drive. We had initially a pedestrian crossing midway in that road that interrupted the circulation onto site. So we just moved that a little further south to make sure vehicles can get in and out a little bit easier. So those are really the major updates that we've made. I think the plan that we presented a few months ago is still very much the same, which if you look at the diagrams attached in this enlarged diagram, I think the overall concept is more refined and better than it was 3 months ago. So having said that, I'm going to pass over the presentation to Marc Delouvrier, our landscape architect, and he can talk through some of the further refinements. Marc, there's a remote right there for you too.
Thank you. Oh, looking at the wrong screen. So there are 5 key elements which make up the site.
I'm going to adjust it. There you go. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, so there's 5 key elements that make up the site that we're going to focus on today. One of them is the main street. So the main street is a 1,000-foot long street that's part of activating the interior space of the site. The new street can be closed to allow a variety of uses and community activity. It's primarily pedestrian, shared by cars. The lanes can be closed for community events. It will have primary commercial on both sides of the street. And then we've also looked at the sustainability aspects of it too, with permeable paving, rain gardens, and green infrastructure. The idea for this is to promote visibility and accessibility to both commercial tenants and the community. And then also the main driver for the street, as far as the width is concerned, is to accommodate fire truck access. This is a view southwest, looking southwest, and the idea is to really sort of create a sense of activity along the street edge. And so we're using like curbless street. It's a curbless street, which will allow for more circulation and smoother circulation between the street. Also have storefronts and a variety of seating areas along the main street. The second element is the town square. Now, the town square is really meant to create a community destination to serve the community as the main gathering space. The space can support a variety of functions, such as food trucks and farmers markets. The town square actually starts from Thousand Oaks Boulevard and then works its way to the Performance Arts Center. The size of it is approximately 50,000 square feet, and it also has an integrated amphitheater. We've integrated seating under the oak trees with use of decking to occupy space that was once unused. And then we've also integrated the mature oak trees we've integrated the mature oak trees into the design. So this is a view looking toward the Performance Arts Theater, and we have an integrated water feature, as well as we're also integrating space underneath the oak trees using these raised decks to help sort of preserve the space and also preserve the oak trees underneath them. This is a view I think that really kind of captures what we're really looking to do, and you can see that this is more of a bird's eye view. It's the idea that we can have a multifunctional space that will allow for large community gatherings within there that accommodate and also work with the existing landscape. Finally, we have the amphitheater. The amphitheater is integrated within the town square, and it's about 5,000 square feet. So it could be able to seat about 240 to 330 individuals. It incorporates the existing oak trees within the deck sort of that fall behind it. And then you'll also notice that there's a pavilion and canopy that sort of highlight the gateway into the town square. So this is a view looking, again, southwest inside the amphitheater, underneath the canopy, where you can see sort of the proposed terrace decks and the oak tree sort of hugging that space in the distance.
So a third major element of the master plan is the element we call the Grand Stair. When we were doing the background analysis on the Civic Arts Plaza, one of the key things that we noted was that there was a kind of a profound lack of connection between Thousand Oaks Boulevard and the Civic Arts Plaza, or the entry to the Kavli Theater. So we thought it was a really important idea to try to focus connection and provide a gathering spot and really a gateway to the pre and post function activities going to the theater. So one of the critical aspects of this, obviously it creates north-south circulation moving up to the plaza. But there's also a secondary elevator access right parallel to this stair, so that people that have less of an interest in moving up a stair can find an easier way up to the plaza. And we think that's important to just be accessible to all visitors of the campus. So this is a view from basically the elevation of the Civic Arts Plaza, looking down back toward the town square and Thousand Oaks Boulevard in the background, and you can really see the way that the town square engages with this stair and creates a lively, free-moving connection between all those various activities. Finally, the biggest purpose of that stair is to actually provide a new sense of dramatic theater arrival to the theater. So we think that the current situation of Kavli Theater facade is quite underwhelming. It doesn't really celebrate the arts in a profound way, so that our thoughts were to try to imagine an enhancement to the facade that would really focus on this new access to the Civic Arts Plaza up there. So visibility into the interior of the spaces, the activity of the pre and post functions, and really celebrating the performing arts. So it's all imagined as a refreshed look at a 25-year building to take it into the next century. So this is a view at the Civic Arts Plaza at the very top. And you can see on the left an idea that we have for perhaps a pre or post function entertainment venue that could provide visitors to the theater an additional activity and keep them there for a little bit longer. But the main idea of this image is really to celebrate the theater and seeing into those upper levels. And finally, the last image we have here is an overview of the master plan looking from the northwest, or northeast, sorry.
So next, I'd like to move into the public engagement efforts that the council had requested we pursue during the November 5th meeting. Quite a bit of stakeholder outreach occurred with community business and institutional partners. Their response has been general support of the conceptual plan. Staff also met with Atera Bio, Thousand Oaks Boulevard Association, Cal Lutheran University, Conejo Rec and Park District, California Museum of Art, Thousand Oaks, Amgen, Rotary and Kiwanis Clubs, Caruso Affiliated, the LA Rams, the Los Robles Hospital, and the Chamber of Commerce. Staff, cultural affairs staff also shared the plan with the theater resident companies, key naming rights donors, and TO Arts, who have all expressed support of the project. We also reached out to the community through a variety of pop-up events. There were 8 that occurred between late January and mid-February. And at those events, we were seeking to get feedback on really the key design elements. We had boards that's part of the staff report that included conceptual pictures, representative images, and we asked participants to identify the things they liked and disliked on the boards. And after reviewing the boards at some locations, we had a virtual reality experience that participants could see the plan in action. Here's the location of our pop-up events. We were at Cal Lutheran University. We were here at the Scheer Forum before a general plan meeting. We were at the Kavli Theater before a National Geographic performance, Grant Brimhall Library. We went to Amgen campus and met with their staff. We were out at Farmers Market. We went to Tarantula Hill Brewing Company one evening and finished up at Wildwood Canyon Trailhead on a Saturday morning. We talked to a lot of folks. The feedback from the residents was generally very positive. They provided some key themes that they thought the new campus has really the potential to be the future central hub of the city. They thought the images were warm and there were a lot of inviting spaces to gather. A lot of folks liked the idea of preserving and celebrating the oak trees. Using the space to expand events and music, arts, and children play areas was a real common theme that we heard. And the idea of having restaurants, cafe, and some shops was generally of significant interest. Overall, the community support for the design elements was really high. As you can see on this slide, the number of likes versus the dislikes was substantially greater. Interestingly, some of the dislikes may have had more to do with an image than the idea of the design. So there was something in a particular image that they didn't like, but they actually liked the idea of the general theme. 46 people actually said, I want to put a dot on everything. So there were 46 folks that just put one dot on the board saying they liked the whole thing. So I'd like to shift the discussion to the area of financing. This is a pretty substantial project. There are a number of sources and methodologies that the city could use to finance the Civic Arts Plaza campus master plan. We have public-private partnerships, which we'll be discussing in just a moment, cash funding, public debt, intergovernmental revenues, bank loans, lines of credits, leases, interfund borrowing, and other debt. Ultimately, it's intended that the cost of the implementation of the Civic Arts Plaza campus master plan be shared by the city, institutional partners, and a private partner. The city has set aside $20 million in general fund reserves and adopted budget to contribute toward the cost, but the city contribution will depend on the scope of the final project and the participation from institutional partners and, most importantly, the private sector. One of the funding sources that we would like to focus on is the public-private partnership. It's commonly referred to as P3. Local governments are increasingly using P3s to deliver public facility and infrastructure projects. I'd like to turn it back over to John Deering from AECOM, who is going to provide some background and information about how public-private partnerships work and the value that they could bring to the campus master plan implementation. John?
Thank you, Gary. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is... Good evening. Mayor, City Council members, my name is John Deering with AECOM's Cities and P3 Advisory Team, and I'm here to give you just a snapshot of what P3s are generally, and particularly in the context of where we are transitioning from the completion or close to completion of this master plan and getting into implementation. So I've got a few slides here to kind of give you an overview, walk through sort of what that process looks like as your advisors to help you guide, what ultimately is the best fit for the city, taking into account, the range of considerations that need to be, identified and delivered on for implementation. The staff report does an excellent job of framing what P3s are generally. In a nutshell, a P3 relies on any combination of bringing in a partner to help design, build, finance, and or operate assets, whether they be buildings, real estate, or even civil infrastructure. So on this screen here, it really in short is describing what they're designed to do and what they're not designed to do, really driven by process. And again, this is the process that we're here to help the city team drive through into actually acquiring partner or partners for, what you're doing through this master plan. In short, P3s are adding options for the city to really achieve maximum value, depending on the individual assets, whether they're revenue generating or managing costs to the extent that you have to, target a reinvestment into this master plan and the various components of it. Point two there is really around the different models. Joint real estate development is something very common. This can start to get into more, complex structures that we have the experience in helping, shape and deliver for cities, all the way through to, turnkey solutions, which again is that full design, build, finance, and operate continuum. So the main takeaway here is your ability to have a process to identify what's important to you, to identify the key risk factors, to quantify those risks, and bake that into an overall plan that the city feels comfortable with. What P3s don't do is they do not take away control of the public asset on behalf of the city. They're also not done in a vacuum, so that's part of these next steps that I'll outline for you for what lies ahead in terms of being able to create a method, a methodology, and a process by which you're able to analyze the discrete options or, really that bigger picture, opportunity to do more in one swoop. And again, none of this is a one-size-fits-all. Each deal is different. Each approach is different, even comparing individual civic centers, and we've got a brief case study we'll give you a snapshot of too as well. So this really gives you the overview of what the process looks like. Through all of the hard work up until now for the master plan process, we're really straddling areas 1 and 2 here on the screen as we go from this, discovery and design period into the actual definition and development around, what the ultimate goals are for the city, for sequencing, for how do you manage risk, the type of profile you want in a partner to come in and deliver on this vision. What we're trying to take you through is all the way through 3. So that's actually, going out to the market through a process that allows you to efficiently but thoroughly create the right expectation for the types of, partners that you want to bring in here for your master plan. This is a little bit of restating what I just described, but I'll just emphasize the points there in yellow is what we try and squeeze out and extract from workshops and discussion, and also taking that into the industry and making sure that there's a market interest where we don't doubt the market interest, but there's different profiles that you'll be considering, and we want to make sure that those meet expectations into the marketplace. So the most important step foundationally is being clear and knowing what you want. Certainly this master plan is the heavy lift on that, but being able to put the finer touches around what are the must-haves and what are the nice-to-haves and what are the things that we're going to be clear that we don't want to include or we don't feel is the best fit. being clear on those items in advance before you actually go out into the quote unquote market is very important. And, we're here to help you, assist you through that process. So moving on to just a couple of brief case studies, we were asked to tee up a couple projects we've worked on recently. The first is the city of Napa and their civic center. They've had over time, their civic center has been actually scattered, 5 or 6 buildings in different parts of a sort of a core downtown, but really not unified into a traditional civic center. Also, pretty aged facilities. And so we have been advising them through this process to figure out the ideal method and partner to come in and, deliver on a unified civic center vision. So in short, they ended up with really 2 opportunity sites. They had the benefit of actually having existing ownership of some underutilized parcels. And so what was developed was this concept of a super block that you see there in the middle, and then an additional space in the very near vicinity that would be new builds for them, allow them to consolidate some of their facilities, and then free up some of those other parcels to then, contribute back to the overall investment picture for their civic center and their master plan. Here's just a snapshot of the proposals. Really what we're here to help the city team establish is the right balance between stating what you want through the vision, fulfilling the master plan, while also allowing some flexibility for the market and, professionalized approaches and, investor type approaches to making the best fit. Having that creativity on the private sector side is certainly a value that you can bring to bear for your master plan. So much so that in Napa, we actually didn't strictly encumber, put a geographic boundary on where we wanted the site. We kept it a little more open, and one of the proposers came in and said, well, we can give you a really good value if you decide to put your civic center not where you're calling your civic center, but about a mile or so away. And so that was an interesting option to consider. It got studied pretty closely, but in the final analysis, the city said, we want to make sure we can keep it in that core downtown civic center area. And another one that we do a lot of work with higher educational institutions, obviously as really big landowners. Accommodating enrollment growth is a big deal, and some of these sites, they're running out of space or they have underutilized land. And so one example that we're doing actually at UC Santa Barbara, not too far away from here on the right-hand side there, is creating, pursuant to what the campus administration wants to do, which is sort of a different policy goal than here, but they want to create housing for faculty and staff as part of their overall recruitment and retention for the campus. And so part of that is to redevelop about a 1 to 2 mile stretch of Ocean Road, which runs north to south and sort of straddles between Isla Vista and the main campus. Heavy infrastructure components around street design, circulation for cars, and also maintaining pedestrian safety. So definitely things that we see similarities for delivering on here as well. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
So thank you, John. I'd like to wrap up by saying that the council, ad hoc committee, the entire city council, the community, they've worked really hard. They've defined the key elements for a downtown space that is transformed to a vibrant, flexible, and multi-use space. The conceptual vision has come to life through the work of AECOM, supported by the ad hoc committee, in the community outreach and the stakeholder engagement. The city owns and is in control of the Civic Arts Plaza and the West Side properties. We are now at a place where participation of a private partner may advance the project forward in a meaningful way. The city can leverage our public assets of the building and property to obtain the highest level of private investment to accomplish the objectives of the campus master plan. At this time, it's recommended the City Council approve the conceptual Civic Arts Plaza Campus Master Plan. It's important to note that further design refinement will occur as the project moves forward. Flexibility within the site and design mix will benefit the projects as it evolves, but the conceptual plan will serve as a strong foundation moving forward. A consultant to be retained to assist the city in the development of a request for qualifications and a request for proposals for a public-private partnership is also recommended. Third-party expertise is essential on such a complex and important city project. It's also recommended the city manager be authorized to amend the contract with AECOM to provide these P3 consulting services in an amount not to exceed $500,000, and that a budget appropriation and expenditure in that amount be approved. AECOM is recommended due to their strong understanding of the city and the project parameters. They are a leader in P3 projects and would bring valuable experience in preparing the RFQ and the RFP. The AECOM team will play a lead role in the P3 due diligence and the analysis that's going to be needed to get the project ready for a request for qualifications that would be sent out to potential private partners. They will also assist in preparing the RFP documents that would later be presented to the City Council for consideration approval before it's issued to the market. Lastly, it's recommended that the city manager, with the concurrence of the City Council Campus Master Plan Ad Hoc Committee, be authorized to issue the request for qualifications for a private partner. City staff and AECOM representatives are here to answer any questions. But first, I'd like to turn it over to the City Council Ad Hoc Committee, Mayor Adam and Mayor Pro Tem Bill de la Pena, for any concluding comments.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Very good report. And I, too, want to thank the people that have been involved with this. It's an incredible endeavor. Community Development Department, our executive team, AECOM, of course, and most importantly, Mayor Pro Tem Bill de la Pena for serving on this very, very important committee. We've had a good time together, haven't we? As always. We're at a very pivotal time this evening. This is a big step for us. We're going to finally pull this off the paper and make it a reality. And that involves taking this project to the market. And I think that the public-private partnership approach is a good one. And we are trying to attract millions of dollars in capital to partner with us as a city to make this vision a reality. And as we heard in our last discussion, the city is in very strong fiscal shape. So we are able to do this. We have set aside funds. And, you know, I like to think that we're sitting on a very expensive piece of property here, a very expensive taxpayer-owned piece of property, maybe somewhere in the region of $100 million. So we want to make sure that this request for proposal and request for qualifications is done properly and that we protect the taxpayer value involved here. I think that's very important. And by going to the market and looking for millions of dollars in private investment, we also need to put together a very astute and very compelling request for proposal and request for qualifications so we can be sure we attract just the right kind of developer for this project. I think partnering with AECOM makes a lot of sense. If I read my report correctly, you're involved with 650 public-private partnerships or have been involved over the years, and you know our situation intimately because you've been involved with us for the last year on it or longer. So I think that that's a very good move that we would be making here. And it's an exciting time. All big institutions are reimagined and re-envisioned over the years. The Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Disney Hall, the Getty Center, and we're a venerable institution that's been here for 26 years, and it's time to reimagine our institution as well. You know, there's a plaque out in front of the building that's dedicated to Frank Shillo, Aloha Zena, Jamie Zukowski, Judy Lazar, and Alex Fiore. In 1994, they inaugurated this building, and I'm sure they were happy to do it, and it's been a great addition to our community, but I'm also sure that they didn't think that this building would stay the same for all time. I'm sure they knew that it would be refined, and that's what we were about to embark on, a major step in a great city facility. And Mayor Pro Tem Bill LaPena, would you care to comment as well?
Thank you, Mayor Adam. Yes, this has been an exciting endeavor. It's far from over, and the meeting tonight is, of course, to determine the next step, and that is the financing aspect of this entire plan. And I think it makes sense to ask staff to recruit or secure through ACOM requests for qualifications so that we get an idea as to who is interested. That said, I also, for the first time tonight, saw the results of our pop-up events, and I was curious to see, I saw that the grand staircase did not necessarily receive a lot of points, and I was wondering what the feedback was regarding that, since this is going to be a central feature.
Sure, and that's why it's so important after someone puts a dot on the chart, we try to ask, well, what was the reason you placed a dot there? So in many cases, interestingly, some people don't like stairs. Some people thought the way they were presented visually, which was a little earlier, the picture we used was a little earlier version than the one you saw tonight. They thought perhaps it wasn't safe. Some people said, well, I can't even go up the stairs. Why would I want them here? And it's as if they were concerned there wasn't going to be an elevator. We were trying to share with them that there's going to be an elevator. So, it may be an area of refinement as we continue to move the project forward. But I think if people saw the most recent conceptual picture that was developed, I think some of those red dots would have gone away. Or if we had a dialogue before the dots were placed, rather than after the dots were placed, there might have been fewer dots on the stairs, red dots.
I envision the staircase to look rather grand at nighttime, especially. It can be made to look quite fancy. And yes, I hope that there won't be a run on the elevator, but there are other entrance opportunities to the actual theater. So I really don't have to add anything more than to say that this is a crucial decision here that we're going to be making tonight, and hopefully we will see it come to fruition sooner than later. But it is exciting indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll just quickly add that a properly constructed request for proposal, which I know that will be done. We're very honed in on that process. It's very important. We'll elicit some very creative approaches to this project that perhaps none of us have even thought about yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing, once this goes to the market, the kind of creativity that the private sector will bring with things like, some of the things that we really want to see, our stairs, for example, our Main Street, our amphitheater, our trees, that being said, and revamping of the City Hall, I'm excited to see some of the other creative approaches that will pop up. We have a question from Councilmember
Mayor Adam,
yes,
really quick, just another point for the public and the question that Mayor Pro Tem Beto LaPena brought up on the staircase piece. It is, in addition to being a point of access up and down, it's also a visual element. Today, it's very foreboding when you are in the upper levels. You're unable to access. You see something down there, but in order to access it, you have to actually wander your way down and around to get there. For our visiting public, it's also that if you're coming to a performance and used to traditionally parking in the structure in a spot and coming straight in, that will still be afforded to you. That parking structure will remain, and that access point at that upper tier will still be there.
Well, one thing we know for sure that with our downtown core master plan, our campus master plan, and it's been reiterated over and over, we need a connection with the theaters to the grounds below and Thousand Oaks Boulevard. And right now we don't have that, and that's a glaring omission, I think, that will be corrected one way or another through this endeavor. Councilmember Engler.
Thank you, Mayor. And kudos to you and the Mayor Pro Tem and to the team that has put this together. It looks very encouraging and kind of exciting, actually. It looks like things are going to be looking up quite a bit. I have a couple of quick questions, though. Can you go a little bit into the difference between RFQ and RFP and how those two interface together?
Sure. So in short, and maybe if I can pull up our chart, we're really talking about a two-phase procurement. So the reason we generally recommend something like that is through the RFQ, you're setting sort of a pre-qualified screening for the type of partner that you want, depending on the individual uses that you're looking to invest in, experience, and you set those criteria, and we help shape that. But that gives you that pre-selected shortlist, pre-qualified, so that when you are ready to make the next step, which comes at a greater cost or investment on the city side, but certainly also for the proposers on the other side of the table, that is on a sound position for taking that next step for actually receiving bids via an RFP.
So to me, it sounds like more of a formalized way to go about. So we did a similar thing this evening with a company who bid for a project, and we gave that project because of some other qualifications. So this qualification would be up front with the people who may be interested then.
That's correct, yes.
And then the second thing is on the P3 process. Thousand Oaks, and we're proud of it, has always partnered with other agencies. Our library is on another agency's property. Our teen center, our adult center is our building on a different agency's property, and administered by the other agency. So we have this partnership with public agencies. I'm not sure whether we've really broached the public-private partnership per se. It's kind of an exciting thing. How much flexibility have you seen in your past actions and your past projects when a private contractor comes in and wants to give input? How much flexibility should we anticipate down the road?
Well, I would say where you started with that question is a function of the level and number of interagency agreements that you have. Certainly, we're familiar with navigating those. That's definitely part of the process we outlined. There really shouldn't be viewed as insurmountable obstacles as it relates to the overall complexity. I mean, we're here to dive into those details, and depending on the number of those that exist. We're confident that can be a non-issue.
Yeah, that's a key concept. The fact that we'll put parameters, I'm sure, in this RFP, but we'll also require some flexibility. Appreciate the use of that word.
I appreciate what you said earlier, is that there may be some ideas out there we haven't thought of yet that someone in the private industry can bring to the table for us.
Very true. Very true. Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, and I wonder if you might explain to me, just in general terms, how this public-private partnership works. Do we put in seed money to start building things? Do they put in seed money? In other words, who pays for what? And are we looking to try to break even? I mean, I don't understand the concept of it.
I'll go back maybe a slide here. I guess the short answer is there's really not a one-size-fits-all. We have the benefit, and Gary attested to it, this is an evolving model in the United States for the built world, built infrastructure. A lot of other advanced economies around the world rely on private capital to invest or reinvest in public assets. And it can really, run the gamut in terms of the type of capital stack, funding stack, in relation to how your projects are being sequenced, the overall total cost estimate, and the level of risk, right? To the extent the city is looking at potentially having tenants, there's the concept around revenue risk. Is the city comfortable, being the landlord, or if you have a lot of tenants, that's a revenue risk that you can actually transfer to another party. There's a host of examples. City of Los Angeles, Grand Park was done through a public-private partnership where the city said, we realize this land is so valuable. They went to the developer community, and the final deal that was negotiated, they were able to get $50 million up front for transforming parking lots into a civic park spanning.
Excuse me, when you say they got $50 million up front, what do you mean? Who got $50 million, and who provided the $50 million?
In exchange for the right to develop a project on city-owned land.
A developer gave the city $50 million. Is that it?
I'm sorry, say the question again.
A developer gave the city $50 million?
Gave the city $50 million to use up front immediately. And the moral of that story is that was in around 2010 when the real estate market was different than it is today. That project took years to acquire funding to pencil out. It only just broke ground last year. And so meanwhile, the city got the benefit of a beautiful park that's been open for 6-7 years now. So it's a long way of saying that looking at, the city's position, what it chooses to invest in with the kinds of funding options you have, according to, what you're trying to deliver through the master plan. There are a variety of deal types and deal structures that allow you to achieve that.
You've studied this plan, I presume, that we've just seen tonight. Is that correct?
Correct.
And are you a financing type person? Is that your bailiwick? Or?
Yes, I spend a lot of my time advising cities on basically public-private partnerships.
Okay, well, could you, I don't want to prolong this, but just in very general terms, could you give me like one scenario that might be good for the city? Getting a lot of money up front to do the, to do the basic work, the streets and streetscape and all that sort of thing? Or what do you envision would be our best scenario? Do you have an idea for that?
It's tough for me to comment on the best scenario at this stage, but with the types of uses that are contemplated in the master plan, the early focus and emphasis around having an institutional anchor type partner, this concept of having a enhanced retail environment feeding into an already pretty vibrant entertainment type venue. There's a lot of mixture of opportunities, and I think the master plan, does establish those.
Would you comment on what we might do to get ahead of what we might do that might be risky on our part, that we wanted to wait for certain things to happen before we go forward with our $20 million? Or
so maybe
do you have any idea?
I can jump in really quick, and you can follow up on this point. So, Councilmember Jones, part of, and if you see on page 17 of the PowerPoint here, this particular slide, if you can pull up the three-phase slide, Gary. what's important for the council to remember is that we're essentially emerging out of phase one right now. And what would happen before an RFQ goes to market is phase two in conjunction with the ad hoc committee, which is working to take this vision that has been established and really refine the types of uses and test all the various components that are in. And that's really where, Councilmember Jones, where those pieces and that risk tolerance and all of those things will be discussed and defined and thought through. So his answer is there's a whole range of ways we could end up going. But as we sit here tonight, saying with specificity that we're going to do exactly this one or that one is a bit premature.
So you're saying it's too early to
a bit
even have a general scenario. It's still too early.
Yeah, because the end result, Councilmember Jones, is very likely to be a multitude of scenarios. Meaning, we're not going to leverage one particular tool or the other. We may leverage several in this process, but we will know that better as we go forward with our advisement team in working what's best for the taxpayers of Thousand Oaks.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. We'll do our best for that, and I believe we have an excellent team to do that. And I would just say, I know this is much different than the Lakes Mall, but I understand we could have done a little better with our relationship that we have, and I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but I was interested in that one step toward the bottom of the staircase. Risk tolerance, and people that are better economists than I am, I think would be better in judging that. I know that's not a precise thing to do, but I would, really, I won't prolong this, but I think that we need to be very careful in what we do. Thank you.
And I would just add really quickly because Councilmember Jones brought up an excellent point. And one of the things you often hear about in this community and varying components when you talk about this property and the adjacent properties is the lakes and some information and misinformation associated with it. I think it's fair to state that in the Lakes project happened a number of years back. The world of public-private partnerships has emerged pretty dramatically over that period of time. And the item before you tonight includes the services of a professional advisement team that does this for cities on a regular basis. The city didn't work through that process in past years. This is part of a check and balance to ensure that we get the best possible deal structure for our residents as we move forward.
You bring up a good point, Councilmember Jones, about being careful. That's exactly what we're doing tonight, being careful. As I mentioned, we have a huge taxpayer asset here to protect. I like to think of this almost as a taxpayer insurance policy. The fact that we're going to probably take 3 to 6 months to put together this request for proposal. We're going to look at the request for qualifications and make sure that the people that we're working with are capable of doing the job that we want to see done. And this process has been a very arduous and careful process.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Councilmember McCoy.
Well, I want to take a minute to say to the mayor and the mayor pro tem that just looking at these initial drawings, it's captivating. It's a beautiful just initial rendering, and the excitement of it is it's captivating. And I was thinking about the two of you laboring on this, and I guess people's personalities, like buildings, have different facades. Some are more pleasant to look at than others. This is reflective of you guys. It's really beautiful, and I just wanted to commend you and all the work you all have done. I'm looking forward to the future on this, and I guess the future depends on what we do today, and that's something I'm looking forward to for the citizens of our community. So thank you, both of you.
Thank you. Claudia and I spent weeks drawing these things, believe me. It's not easy, was it, Claudia? No. And in fact, Mayor Pro Tem is up next.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to assure Councilmember Jones, that I am the only council member sitting here who actually also voted on the Lakes project over 16 years ago. And comparing this endeavor to the Lakes endeavor, it's a difference between night and day. I was not an advocate of what happened 16, 17 years ago. And what we're doing here is so transparent, it is so thorough that I can certainly put my stamp on this project, as well as any decision that will come tonight and after tonight, because I wouldn't put my name to anything that wouldn't be transparent and that wouldn't be also in the best interest of the taxpayer and taxpayer dollars. So yes, very, very different from the Lakes.
Thank you.
All righty. We're going to go to our public speaker cards now, and we have two speakers. Dan Garcia is up first, followed by Eloise Cohen. Evening.
Evening. Good evening, Mayor Adam and council members. My name is Dan Garcia. I am the Manager of Government Affairs and Tourism for the Greater Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce, and I am here on behalf of our Chamber of Commerce and our Board of Directors that unanimously supports the decision in front of you today and these recommendations of this Civic Arts Plaza Campus Master Plan. And one thing I'd like to say too in support of that is it's a very special and opportune moment when a plan and a vision that is so unique to Thousand Oaks and that is going to benefit not only our residents but our business community also aligns with the vision of the people who live here. It is a shared vision, and we are excited to see what comes forward after this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Eloise Cohen. Evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Eloise Cohen, resident of Thousand Oaks. I am a board member of the Thousand Oaks Alliance for the Arts, also known as TO Arts, which provides fundraising and programmatic support, as you know, to the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza's Bank of America Performing Arts Center. And I'm speaking tonight on behalf of TO Arts. We'd like to express our support for Agenda Item 9B, the Civic Arts Plaza Campus Master Plan project and recommendations. Although it's in its early stages, we believe that it encourages a multitude of possibilities for revitalizing, reshaping, and recognizing the importance of arts and entertainment on this campus, and that it would benefit the community in our theaters in several ways. First, making the theaters more accessible to members of the public and improving the experience. Second, having more amenities near the theaters, which will encourage walk-up traffic and create a more vibrant downtown-type space for patrons. Third, creating opportunities for outdoor performance spaces and public art, which will enliven the arts and culture atmosphere of our community. Fourth, transforming the current space, which invites new patrons and community gathering, leading to opportunities for increased fundraising capacity to support our programs at TO Arts, such as Kids in the Arts, Art with Heart, Dr. Raymond M. Olson grants for community groups, and theater sustainability for a new generation of theater goers. We also anticipate the possibility of new naming opportunities. And lastly, improving the patron experience by the inclusion of on-site dining options and additional activity, which encourages early arrival to park and leads to downtown Thousand Oaks becoming the destination for an evening rather than just a single stopping point for a performance. So for all these reasons, TO Arts is in support of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Eloise. And Eloise, thank you for your commitment to the arts here in Thousand Oaks, and congratulations on receiving the TO Arts Lifetime Heart for the Arts Award, which signifies your, as I said, your commitment to the arts. It was your father, Ray Olson, that started this whole thing many years ago when he said we need a place, and I'm sure he's looking down now, smiling, knowing that we have that place and it's going to be even better. So thank you, Eloise. Okay, all righty. Let's see. Any follow-up from Gary or AECom? And if there's no further council questions, and I need a motion, and who would like to give me that? Member McCoy, would you care to? Member, why did I come up with that? Council member. Let's get the whole thing in there.
I'm good with it. I move to approve recommendations 1 through 4.
All right, thank you. Thank you, council member. And if we could put that up for a vote, please.
The motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Great report. And now we go on to another department report that is rather groundbreaking, literally. And that has to do with our Thousand Oaks Boulevard Streetscape Phase 1, which has been a few months in the coming, but we're right here ready to go. And Nader Haidari is going to give us that report as soon as he gets set up over there. Good evening, Mr. Haidari.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Nader Haidari. I'm your city engineer. I'm here tonight to make a presentation in connection with the award of the construction contract for the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Streetscape Improvements Phase 1 project. With me tonight is Ida Faruzan, our project manager for the project, as well as Kevin Wilson, maintenance superintendent, and Cliff Finley, public works director. Just a brief background. This project touches on some of the elements we just discussed at the previous presentation, but in 2011, City Council adopted the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan. The goal was to create a retail and entertainment destination and many other themes that we just discussed between Moore Park and Duesenberg. This Civic Arts Plaza zone under the SP20 is the stretch between Erbs Road and Conejo School Road. And in November 2015, the City Council approved the preparation of a conceptual design for the Civic Arts Plaza zone as the Phase 1 project. In June 2017, the City Council approved the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Streetscape conceptual design, with the Phase 1 projects limited and reduced to just include the area from Erbs Road to Zuniga Ridge Place. Following Council's approval of that conceptual design, the final design and contract documents were completed just a few months ago in November 2019, and the City Council authorized the project to be advertised for bids. This exhibit shows the existing configuration on Thousand Oaks Boulevard today. Between Erbs Road and Zuniga, the existing pavement's 80-foot wide, and there's 10-foot sidewalks on both sides of the street. And this is a rendering of the proposed improvements that are before you tonight. The project offers several key components to help transform this portion of Thousand Oaks Boulevard into a more pedestrian and business-friendly downtown zone. That includes improved signal operations at one of the most complex intersections in the city by integrating Zuniga Ridge into one unified intersection, which will allow the intersection to maintain the existing level of service and operate more safely and effectively both now and in the future. Enhanced safety for pedestrians. Narrowing the street from 80 feet to 68 feet allows us to expand the sidewalk to 22 feet on the south side of the boulevard. These wider sidewalks align with the requirements in the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan and will help us provide for shorter, safer crossings for pedestrians. Decorative concrete pavers for the sidewalks and crosswalks. Complete reconstruction of the street section to improve drainage and provide a flatter travel surface for pedestrians and vehicles. New pedestrian lighting is included in this plan. New landscaping, including new planters, street trees, and decorative accent trees have been included, and infrastructure upgrades. The project includes the proactive replacement and relocation of aging water mains and service lines. In order to implement the above, a total of 5 existing trees will be removed on the north side, including 3 oak trees. 12 mitigation oaks at a ratio of 4:1 will be planted in the median near Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Westlake Boulevard to offset these removals. And in addition, 15 new 36-inch box London plane trees will be planted in large tree wells within the project limits. The project also includes decorative accent trees. In summary, while only 5 trees are being removed, over 30 new trees will be planted. All of the above are key components. Here's a simple rendering of the proposed streetscape improvements shown in front of the current Loop 8 1710 Thousand Oaks Boulevard mixed-use project that is under construction right now, for a sense of what the final improvements will look like together. This is an example of the treescape that we're discussing, the mature London plane trees in downtown settings next to storefronts and travel lanes. These type of tree species has been selected for our project as they can be maintained to have higher canopies to limit conflicts with travel lanes and storefronts. And as a result, they integrate effectively in this type of setting. Below on the sketch also is a kind of a blow up of the 22-foot sidewalk on a plan view. On our project, the effective sidewalk is actually going to be closer to 32 feet, as the buildings are an additional 10 feet behind the right-of-way. Just one more sketch. This rendering, this is an example of a downtown setting with the type of paver sidewalks that we've incorporated into this design before you tonight, as well as London plane trees and tree wells a few feet behind the curb. They also show those decorative accent trees on the right-hand side that will be sprinkled in throughout the project. It should be noted that our sidewalk width of 22 feet is larger than that which is depicted on this rendering, and our tree wells are going to be larger as well. So as I mentioned, the project design was completed a couple months ago. The project was advertised for bid, and we received 5 bids on January 29th. Los Angeles Engineering was the lowest responsive bidder at a price of approximately $3.5 million. The total cost for the construction phase of this project is estimated right around $4 million. The breakdown is there before you. With $4 million needed to complete the construction phase, there is approximately $3 million available in the current CIP program budget, and to augment that, $650,000 budget transfer and a $350,000 additional appropriation is required. In terms of public outreach and civic engagement, staff has been heavily involved in communicating with stakeholders and neighboring businesses in the immediate area over the past several years. As many of the methods are listed on this slide, during construction, we're going to continue this robust level of public outreach by installing changeable message boards at least 1 or 2 weeks before the start of construction. They will display project information and a link to the dedicated project website, which is toaks.org/TOB. We're going to also deploy additional CMS boards on the side streets during the construction phase. We're going to be sending advanced mailer notifications out to all residents within an approximately 3/4-mile radius of the project before construction starts, as well as leveraging what we can on digital tools such as our website, social media, and the Acorn and other media to reach the broader community. If approved tonight, the construction will be expected to start in early April and be completed in September, which is right in line with the anticipated completion of the mixed-use project that is under construction right now at the corner of Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Urbs Road. Fairly significant impacts will be anticipated during the construction phase, with the roadway reduced to 1 lane in each direction and stop sign control during the heaviest portions of the project, primarily for the roadway reconstruction. This is anticipated to be completed within a 12-week window in late spring and early summer. As previously mentioned, we've been investing significant energy toward the public outreach on the project in order to convey these impacts to the neighboring businesses. Although the construction phase will have these impacts, the project will bring important improvements to the community, specifically to the Thousand Oaks Boulevard area. Staff's recommendations are listed in the report and as well as on this slide, and we would be happy to answer any of council's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Haydari. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor Adam. Good evening, Mr. Haydari. I was wondering about the trees, if you could take me through that again. How many oak trees will be removed and how will they be replaced?
Yes, there are 3 oak trees that will be removed as a result of the project. One is 5 inches, one is 6 inches, and I believe the third one is 16 inches. They're all located on the north side of the street right now. None of them are thriving in terms of, they've been placed in small tree wells within the sidewalk, and if there's a narrow sidewalk on the north side of the street. So those are the 3 that have to be relocated. And they are being replaced at a ratio of 4 to 1, which exceeds the minimum requirement.
And where will they be replaced, 4 to 1? Where will they be planted?
At this point, we have found a location on Westlake Boulevard, right near the intersection of Thousand Oaks Boulevard. So it's a Teal Boulevard adjacent. In fact, I think I have a slide here with those locations depicted that we've sketched in the green items on the 2 different areas. This is between Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Hillcrest.
Okay, thank you. I know I sound like a broken record. It's not the first time I've said this, but why can't we put oak trees in there with the technology that is available today, with the Silva Cell, for example, where sidewalks would really not be negatively impacted or roads be negatively impacted?
Yeah, the Silva Cell technology is used to suspend concrete slabs and is not able to accommodate the same for the pavers the individual paver stones that we're going to be using on this project. The oak trees, fortunately, the project does have several oak trees in the immediate vicinity, and they align with the Paseo here, the axis of the Paseo, which is the pedestrian element that's located right adjacent to the project, as well as at the intersection of the Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Herbs, and there is one at Zuniga Ridge as well. So one of the elements that had the London plane trees be selected as the street tree in the downtown core master plan was that their tendency to grow more vertical, whereas the oak tree grows quite horizontal, which causes impact to the adjacent storefronts as well as to the roadway. And if you look at this drawing, we have the travel lane is immediately adjacent to the curb there. So that oak tree would never be able to really grow in its appropriate shape because it would be continually trimmed for vehicle clearance. So it would kind of have like a one-sided shape. So it really wouldn't thrive. I think in the medians that we've selected the replacement trees to go, they're wider. They have a lot better chance of reaching their full potential than they would in a tree well in the sidewalk.
Okay, and then another question I have is how will this work impact the work that is yet to come with the improvements on Teal Boulevard and the campus master plan, for example?
So the limits of this project were reduced to just concentrate on this gateway intersection. The other elements you're referring to are just down the block a little bit more. So this has been, separated from the campus master plan in that regard. So there's really no conflict or overlap. This is a little bit of a standalone and the gateway to the whole area. And as the campus master plan and components that were discussed earlier tonight get finalized, those can the future improvements on the rest of the boulevard can then be determined.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Engler.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question now on the aesthetic treatment of this intersection. Will that aesthetics be blended into the master plan that we've talked about tonight? In other words, that look is going to continue down the street?
Let me take a stab at that. So the original downtown master plan envisioned special treatment at the intersections. So we envision that this special treatment might translate down the boulevard at the intersections while allowing us the flexibility between those intersections to do something different if the master plan recommended that. As you can see from the master plan, when you looked at that street that they envisioned, it looked as though it was envisioned with pavers and similar materials of construction.
And then in terms of everyone's concerned about traffic flow on Thousand Oaks Boulevard, I understand during the construction there's going to be some impact. Pedestrians will be able to get across the street quite a bit quicker. Is that what by cutting it down 30 feet? Is that correct?
Yeah, the reduction is a 15% reduction in the roadway width and the asphalt width that the pedestrian would have to cross. So it's going from 80 foot wide to 68 feet wide.
Okay. And will that result in any impact on traffic?
Yes, the answer to that question is yes. Pedestrians actually impact the timing of an intersection more than any other movement in that intersection. So when a pedestrian pushes a button to cross, it takes more time for that pedestrian to get across a larger gap than in this case, a shorter gap. But both of those gaps, it takes much longer than it does just to clear an intersection of vehicles. So limiting the amount of time for a pedestrian phase is a good way to improve the efficiency of an intersection.
So that with just keeping our 2 lanes each direction, narrowing it down a little bit, we can maybe even improve traffic? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, potentially the timing of that intersection, yes.
And include benefit of incorporating the Zuniga Ridge now into this integrated intersection as well. But the amount of lanes going through the intersection is unchanged, and the level of service will be maintained.
Mr. Finley, maybe you can speak to, because we're talking about a minor lane width reduction, and one of the frequent criticisms we hear along Thousand Oaks Boulevard is speed, and speed is often a factor of lane width. And we did a project recently on Lynn Road where we narrowed lanes and had a positive impact in terms of controlling speed. Maybe you can kind of speak to that from a circulatory standpoint.
Yes, thank you. Reducing lane widths is a proven way to reduce speeds on a street. We're only narrowing them a foot. Currently, the lane widths on Thousand Oaks Boulevard are as wide as the 101 freeway. Hence the feeling that you can drive as fast as you kind of want to. We're only going to narrow them a foot, but actually that feels to the driver significantly narrower. And the tendency is to slow down, even if it's only 4 or 5 miles per hour. That makes a big difference. We've done it on Lynn Road. We did it on Arbalest between Herbs and Westlake Boulevard. We've done it throughout town and had really good results.
All right, Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, my question was similar to Councilman Engler's. When I saw that pretty sidewalk, I thought, wouldn't it be neat if we could continue that all the way down to what we're contemplating in the Civic Arts Plaza? Well, I suppose we could do that if these properties ever come in for development, we could condition the development, I guess, to continue that so we'd have a walkway feeling all the way from Lupi's to the...
That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
We could do that. But we're going to wait to do that till somebody wants to develop those properties. Is that it?
At this point, that is correct. We want to show people and developers how nice it could look, and hopefully that entices them to move in.
Do we have anything in the offing that we know of? Have any of those owners contemplating anything right now? Or?
Well, part of the item this evening is was the campus master plan. You remember the city owns.
Yes.
But
I'm talking about the other properties, the intervening properties.
Nothing right now.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, by no means is this the proverbial road diet. We still have our 4 lanes, and as a matter of fact, once our little main street is built through the campus, that actually will pull some traffic off the boulevard and create a little less traffic there. I don't know if anybody noticed, but in the campus master plan tonight, there was a new road on the west side that will connect to Zuniga Ridge, which is what we're about to propose that we change. So that connectivity is going to really help the west side of the property. And all I can say is mark your calendars, folks, because this is the beginning of the revitalization of our downtown. This is the first tangible step that we're taking. We don't have a grid system like some cities, like Pasadena or Santa Barbara, but we are going to be able to connect our population centers with sidewalks. After phase 1 is done, phase 2 will go in, and that will go all the way up to Conejo School Road. We have a project to the north on Conejo School Road with sidewalks, correct? That will connect all the way to Los Feliz and Hillcrest. And then on Conejo School that turns into Willow, we're going to have a sidewalk project there that will connect all the way to Hampshire Road. So there will be pedestrian connection from the downtown to two major population centers, and that's what we've been talking about for years, and this is our first step to make that happen. So, exciting start. And we do have a speaker. Were there any other questions or thoughts? If not, we have a speaker, Sean Moradian. Would you like to come up?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council members. My name is Sean Moradian. Pleasure to be before you this evening. Lifelong resident of Thousand Oaks and the president of the Thousand Oaks Boulevard Association. I just wanted to comment on the fine job that staff has done, especially under the leadership of Mr. Haydari, on the outreach for this project. He did come to the association several times with various phases of this project. He engaged our members, he engaged our property owners that are within the subject project boundaries. He also went through the short-term construction plans and outreach to our tenants and businesses, how they would be, I don't want to use the word affected, but what they should expect during the course of this project. I think in totality, once we looked at, our association was very supportive of this project, and any short-term effects are clearly mitigated with the long-term benefit that this project will bring to our gateway into this core area. So I really wanted to say thank you for a job well done, and we look forward to this being the beginning, as you've said, Mr. Mayor, of many more beautiful improvements to our downtown area. And in terms of, there's a question on capacity. I think it was Mr. Jones that mentioned what happens if the lanes are reduced. I think one of the thoughts was, both for our association and with staff, is how do we maintain the capacity while making it safer? So there's still going to be the same amount of vehicles, same amount of trips, but just a safer, more pedestrian-oriented environment. We support that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moradian. Well, if there's no further discussion, I would ask for a motion, please. Mr. McCoy.
I move to approve item 9C and all of the, 7 staff recommendations.
All right. Thank you, Mr. McCoy. And could we bring that to a vote, please?
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. Good job. And we have another department report. Tim Giles, Human Resources Director, is going to give that to us about a retired annuitant appointment.
Never saw the word annuitant before. That's a annuitant to me.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. As you know, Jay Spurgeon retired from the city service on February 6th of this year as our city's Public Works Director. He had developed quite a bit of expertise in private water rates and rate setting process and consulted with our city attorney on a number of rate cases in the past. The council has asked for the city attorney to evaluate a pending rate application, and the city attorney would like to be able to consult with Mr. Spurgeon with regard to that evaluation. CalPERS, by state law, has certain regulations on which they will allow a retired annuitant to return to service without jeopardizing their retirement. There are a number of requirements on that, one of which is that they require the City Council to take this up at a department report and not on your consent calendar or otherwise. The opportunity for Mr. Spurgeon to come back would be to perform limited work for a limited duration just for the pendency of the rate application that is under consideration. The employment is limited to a maximum of 960 hours per fiscal year. Normally, there is a 180-day period between the retirement and the ability of the retired annuitant to return. But with the City Council is able to waive that, which we're asking for tonight, due to the nature of the employment, the services, and the need for that evaluation to take place at this point in time. With that, staff would request the council to approve the appointment of Jay Spurgeon as a retired annuitant hourly employee and authorize the expenditure from the Public Works Temporary Hourly Employee Regular Pay budget account. And I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Giles.
Mr. Mayor, I realize this will be a very close vote, but I would like to take the chance and move approval of this matter.
All right, Ms. Jones. Mayor Pro Tem just had a comment.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to move, but I do have a question. So it's 960 hours per year. Is there a limit on the number of years?
The only limitation on the overall length of term would be specified by the topic that he is brought in for. In this case, it's to consult with regard to this specific rate application. So once that rate application evaluation is no longer underway, the services would terminate, and it has to be specified in his offer of employment as such.
Thank you. I cannot think of any more expert person on all water issues than Jay Spurgeon. So I'll definitely vote for the motion.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Yeah, I know this council is very well aware of Jay's invaluable expertise, as Mayor Pro Tem said, in negotiating lower rates for the ratepayer in the Cal-Am situation. So we have a motion on the floor from Councilmember Jones. We vote, please.
The motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you. And we don't have any council member reports this evening. How about follow-up comments from our city manager?
Yes, thanks so much, Mayor Adam. Just note that our next regular city council meeting will be on the 17th, Tuesday night, 17th of March. That's our annual goal-setting session. It will actually be held at the Las Robles Greens Golf Course this year. We will have it televised or streamed as we have in recent years as well. Also wanted to just make a note that we have received, just based on the news that's been happening on the state and national level regarding the coronavirus. We have received some inquiries here at City Hall. Just want to make folks aware we do have a little section of news and information that links through to the county's site from our website at toaks.org. We continue to interface very closely with the Office of Emergency Services and the Public Health Department, which is the lead entity in dealing with any type of viral outbreak. And there are no confirmed cases of the virus in Ventura County at this time. However, the CDC did have some statements today in encouraging preparations, and so we're very much doing that as an organization here, and just wanted our community to know that our team is well engaged on this issue, and if and when there is a need, we'll be ready to respond.
Since March 17th is St. Patrick's Day, are you going to provide a little Guinness for the council members that night?
I think that'll be on Mayor Adams' shoulders.
We'll see, Mr.
Green
Jones.
bow tie, perhaps.
We will see. All right, thank you, Mr. Powers. And yeah, as far as the virus goes, we are monitoring the situation. We're getting daily updates, and we will keep you apprised of any new developments. And we don't have any closed session items tonight, so I am going to adjourn this meeting in memory of Dennis Carpenter. Dennis passed away on February 9th, and Dennis served for more than 3 decades with the Ventura County Sheriff's Department. His work assignments included leadership roles with the SWAT team, the aviation unit, court services, internal affairs, narcotics unit, and county patrol operations. But he's perhaps best known as our former chief of police for the city of Thousand Oaks. Beginning his tenure in 2005, Dennis's accomplishments as Thousand Oaks chief included converting the DARE program to the 3-officer school resource system and establishment of the first internet predator detective position. Through his leadership, Dennis played a key role in realizing the city's strong commitment to public safety. The son of a former Port Hueneme councilman and mayor, Dennis began his law enforcement career with the Port Hueneme Police in 1973 and was recruited into the Ventura County Sheriff's Department as a patrol officer for Thousand Oaks. Dennis said the highlights of his career included the 3 years he lived with his family at a rural outpost in Lockwood Valley as a resident deputy and his time as captain of the department's narcotics unit when he helped create a countywide narcotics task force. Dennis retired after a 33-year career with the county's largest law enforcement agency in 2010 as chief deputy of the Sheriff's Department's Patrol Services. A native of Ventura County his entire life, Dennis earned a bachelor's degree in administration of justice from California Lutheran University and a master's degree in public administration from Cal State Northridge. Dennis was married to his high school sweetheart, Shirley, for 47 years and will be greatly missed by his family, including his 6 grandchildren and his countless friends. Dennis did a wonderful job as our police chief, and we will miss him. I'd like to adjourn this meeting now, and we will see you